It is time to put a bow on 2020 by opening up a game that I'm very excited to open and I've been sitting on for about a week. It's a game that I got for a Christmas present from family. It is a game that fills a big gap in my video game library for sports games. Although I have the game disc only, now I'm going to have it complete. So I'm excited to open this up. I'm excited to talk about it. And what is it? It is NBA Street for the PlayStation 2. Originally released in June of 2001 by EA Sports Big, and was later released for the GameCube in 2002. This is to Streetball what NBA Jam was to professional basketball. This is a game that takes place on outside courts where it does use NBA players. This is 3-on-3 instead of 2-on-2. There's some over-the-top things in this game. There's a lot of tricks to be done, whereas NBA Jam is more straightforward, taking it to the hoop and either shooting from the outside or dunking it on the inside. There are different tricks that you can do to be able to build, I believe, a game breaker meter, I think it's called. I'm trying to remember because it's been a long time since I played. And then you can do all kinds of crazy stuff. And we'll take a look at the inside, at the manual, when we get this opened up. This looks like it might be a resealed copy instead of a factory sealed copy. This came from Amazon, so we'll definitely check it out when we open it. But you can see the stylized look here. You did see it on the front as well, but you definitely see the stylized look here. It's not this digitized look that we saw in NBA Jam or the polygon base where they look like real players look that we saw in NBA Showtime. This is more stylized, it's more urban, and I think that the game is better for it. It gives it that unique feel, this unique look, and I think that that is fantastic. As we see on the back here, you hold court against street legends. That is part of the game. Michael Jordan is in the game as well, which was a big deal. EA had the license for Michael Jordan, so could put his airness in all of their games for some time. Center stage is where ballers come to play, and it does promise 3-on-3 street ball. So without further delay, we're going to go ahead and get this open, and we're going to see what the game looks like on the inside. The ref here has his trusty scissors. Hopefully he's not going to cut himself open. Just going to cut down the side there. And we are going to get this opened up. At least I hope. There we go. So again, I'm very excited about this. I have just the disc only. I don't have this complete for the PS2. I do have it complete for the GameCube, but not for the PlayStation 2. And this, there are differences between the two games. So we'll get that in the trash here, and you can tell usually when it's a resealed game because it has that security device enclosed seal on the top. Maybe this was returned. Someone bought it and didn't like it. It's really tough to say, but we'll take that security sticker off, maybe. Yeah, this is resealed, I think. That's okay, though. So we'll put that in the garbage, and we open up the disc case here. We do see the NBA Street disc. I'll turn this around so you can see it. So you see the NBA Street disc and the manual. Very simple. Because this had come out in 2001, you weren't getting that memory card thing at the top. Although, as I mentioned, I do think that this is a generic case. Let's take a look first at the disc. I'm a little concerned here. Nope. Disc looks good. So I will be looking forward to playing that soon. But let's take a look at the manual itself. The manual is fairly thick, by the way. And because this is a greatest hits copy, we're already taking a look at SSX Tricky as well as Sledstorm 2, both of these from EA Sports Big. For those that don't know what EA Sports Big was, it was like their extreme, over-the-top, arcadey kind of label. SSX was first, NBA Street was next, NFL Street, FIFA Street, Def Jam Vendetta, Def Jam Fight for New York, Sledstorm. These were the over-the-top games that pretty much anybody can play. And it was one of the reasons why the sixth generation of consoles was just so fantastic for sports games, is because whether you were interested in simulation or arcade or extreme or traditional, there was always something for you to be able to play. Whereas these days, it's pretty much simulation's all you got. You take it or you leave it. And that is unfortunate. So there's the manual right there, looking just the same as it does in the front cover. The manual is 44 pages long, so we're going to take a look at this and see what makes this game tick. When we open it up, it is in black and white, by the way, so there's no color to look at. By the way, and you saw it earlier, this is a CD-ROM based game, so it's blue-backed discs. So if your PlayStation 2 has trouble reading the blue discs, just keep that in mind if you're looking to get a copy of this game for yourself, which, by the way, I recommend, but I don't want to spoiler it too much because I want to get through the instruction manual. So when we take a look at the manual, it does walk us through the play controls, which you can see here. And you can see that there are advanced trick moves, and there are some standard trick moves as well. Tricks are what fill your game breaker meter, and you really want to be able to do that. So chaining tricks together, comboing tricks together is part of the strategy of the game, as well as just being able to get to the score to be able to win. We also have advanced dunks as well. So you see the dunks up there at the top. They consist of holding the trigger buttons at the top, some combination of the trigger buttons, and then the shoot button, which is the circle button. And if you hold all four buttons, L1, L2, R1, R2, and the circle button, you do a dunk called Dinner Served, which I tend to do quite a bit when I play this game. Note, players need a high dunk rating to successfully perform advanced dunks. If a dunk rating is too low, he may miss the dunk, so it's something to keep in mind as well. To execute a dinner serve, you must start from just inside the free throw line while running straight toward the basket. So the introduction here is as follows. Your game's too big for the arena, too cool for the hard courts. Take your game to the streets and play against the city's legendary ballers with NBA Street. Lace up the tops, crank up the beats, and let it roll, y'all. Hit the blacktop on the first over-the-top 3-on-3 arcade action streetball video game for the PlayStation 2 console. Play basketball the way it was supposed to be played, in the streets, outside the lines, and over the top. Schooling your opponent on the way to victory is the name of the game. Receiving rewards for it is extra sweet. Tour the country's toughest courts in 2 awesome game modes. Team up with Michael Jordan in City Circuit mode. I got retail in the brain. And hoop it up against NBA ballers and street legends, or work your skills against mixed squads from the NBA and hold the court mode. You think you got game? Then take it to the street, playa. So we have hooping it up with Streetball legends, hold the court against the city's baddest ballers, hit the road in the city circuit, the game breaker shot. That's what I was talking about earlier. We break the game wide open as you build your momentum boost with special tricks and moves. Experience the competitive tug-of-war that allows you to unleash a move that not only scores points for your team, but subtracts points from your opponent at the same time. So it makes your lead bigger, or it shrinks the opponent's lead considerably, or it can even just change the outcome of a game. It is that big a move, and we'll talk more about game breakers in a little bit. So the menu, as you can see here, is very simple. Like everything's all lowercase and everything, but that's okay. It doesn't really take away from the style of the game. It's really when you're playing the game itself that it shines here. So you can choose an NBA squad, or you can choose a street baller squad. It really is up to you which way you want to play it. There are cheats in the game. Remember, this is Generation 6, which is just the very beginning of online gaming, so cheats were still a thing. So if you found cheat codes in like a video game magazine or online, you could put those cheats in to unlock certain things. There was a specific cheat menu for that here, and you weren't necessarily penalized for that. So Hold the Court is playing against a friend or against the street's baddest ballers. If you keep winning, you keep on playing. Lose, it will give you a quarter to call someone who cares. Your ultimate goal is to set the winning streak and total points record for each court. You can even unlock new items for a creative player along the way. So you're creating your own player here, and you're playing alongside the big streetball legends or NBA players. And that's part of the allure of the game, that customization. Putting yourself in the game is certainly something to do here in NBA Street. So you can see more about what the game screen looks like. You have your turbo meter, you have your game breaker meter. You certainly have the number of points that you're scoring, because it is to a certain number of points that you're playing. So you got to remember that, while also accumulating trick points at the same time. So you can do alley-oops here, which is awesome. To complete an alley-oop pass, press the X button when your teammate flies toward the rim. Success depends on timing, so don't pass the ball too early or too late. Alley-oops are automatic, which is also a plus. So So you increase your boost meter by pulling off sick moves and tight combos. Basically, the more trick moves you pull off in succession without making a mistake, the more trick points you get, and there's a multiplier involved. Kind of like Tony Hawk in that way, where the more tricks you do at the same time, you get like this trick multiplier, and you wind up getting more and more points. And the more points you get, the more your Game Breaker meter fills. So that's important to keep in mind. The Game Breaker adds a bonus to the player's base rating for shooting or dunking. So the better a player is at long-range shots, the higher his chance of hitting a Game Breaker from long range. Likewise, the better a player is at dunking, the higher his chance of completing a Game Breaker dunk. Game Breaker dunks and short-range shots are worth 1 point, where you get 1 point and your opponent loses a point, so it's a 2-point swing. Long-range shots are worth 2 points, so you get 2 points and your opponent loses 2 points. That's a 4-point swing as well. So keep that in mind when you're playing Game Breakers. And if the computer gets the Game Breaker, you really want to try and keep the ball away from the computer, because Game Breakers are only offensive. So if you're on defense, your Game Breaker meter like slowly ticks down, it slowly degrades. So if you keep the computer on defense, they can't use their Game Breaker shot, and consequently it can be harmless. But remember that the computer will try to do the same thing to you. So keep that in mind. With dunks, there are 2 levels of dunks, basic and advanced. The advanced dunks score more trick points when performed. If you repeat moves, just like Tony Hawk, you get a little bit of a penalty for that, so you got to keep that in mind. Combos and combo scoring it talks about. Turbo, of course, is in the game, something to keep in mind as well. So we take a look at our street legends here. We have Biggs and Bonafide. And you can see that EA Big style, just like SSX, where the characters are big and beefy and bigger than life. And that was the general idea, of course. Drake, that's not Drake. Drake. And we have DJ here. Takashi and Stretch. Stretch, definitely that callback to the 70s. And for the courts, we have Pacific Boulevard, Beacon Hill, which is in Boston, Mass. South Beach, Broad Street. So you have different courts to play on, although they aren't licensed courts. We would get the licensed courts starting, I believe, in NBA Street Volume 2, where you had like Rucker Park and other places to go. Route 66, The Yard, The Cage, Venice Beach. So these are all fantasy courts, but they are taking place in real-life venues. And we have 4 more. Rucker Park actually is here, so my bad. I think there were more courts in NBA Street Volume 2 and definitely in Volume 3, where those later games, especially Volume 3, really looking at Streetball through the microscope and educating players on the culture as well as the history, which I think is pretty neat. Unfortunately, Volume 2 and Volume 3, getting those sealed, that's a lot of money and something that I can't afford at the moment, unfortunately. So those are the different courts in the game. Street School will take you through the tutorial of sorts, which is a good idea if you haven't played the game. I highly recommend doing that to learn the play controls and to really figure things out. You can create your own player as well, something I always do, and one of the reasons I love sports games so much, I've talked about that. Putting myself in the game is something I absolutely love to do, especially someone who can actually be athletic, instead of me, who's a big oaf and can't do anything athletically except when he has a controller in his hand. So there's saving and loading, of course. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We have a whole bunch of licensed music here as well. Again, that's part of the culture behind the game. If you haven't played NBA Street, you really owe it to yourself to do so. And unfortunately, when they brought NBA Street to the 7th generation of consoles, it really didn't translate well. We only had one sequel of sorts. It was one game and done because the game wasn't great. But playing these on Gen 6 consoles, whether it's the PlayStation 2, the GameCube, or the Xbox, is something you really should do. It's not NBA Jam. Remember that it's not NBA Jam. It's very trick-oriented. So think about a cross between like an SSX or a Tony Hawk and an arcade basketball game, and you get NBA Street, as well as you get the culture. If you're into Streetball at all, I think you'll really appreciate this. And if you like the NBA as well, playing as your favorite players is certainly very cool. getting this game sealed is fantastic. It looks fantastic, which is great. The condition of the disc, which means that I'll be able to check it out on my own and get some game time in. Whether this is the best game in the series or not is certainly up for debate. My opinion, it is. I compare this a lot to the Donkey Kong Country series. Unlike a lot of other people, I am the biggest fan of the first game. The second game is very good too, but to me just a little bit behind, and then third is kind of down further. So it kind of starts at that peak and slowly slides down. It's the same thing with NBA Street. I love the first game, I really like the second game, and I like the third game. There are no bad games in the trilogy, but I think in terms of overall approach and accessibility, I think that this is the easier of the three to get into right off the jump. NBA Street, of course, would get competition from NBA Ballers, from Midway, or Mark Turmel and Company would go back to the drawing board after NBA Jam and create something else new, but that was more 2-on-2, or 1-on-1, I'm sorry, rather than 3-on-3. So that's another game that we did for Unsealed a couple of years ago. You can check in the Unsealed playlist for that and check that out on your own. So that is it for the last Unsealed of 2020. Mercifully, the year is over, and hopefully I'm ending it for you on a good note. Thanks to each and every one of you who have been watching my videos this year. I really appreciate it. The channel eclipsed 600 subscribers this year, which is mind-blowing, and I'm looking forward to making more content in 2021. So until 2021 comes, my friends, please take care of yourselves and each other. Happy New Year. Be safe, and we'll talk again real soon. Until then, take care.